everybody, welcome back to Plot Twist. So I seem to have gotten out of my slump. I've read a few books now. They are on my blanket, which I'll do an update video on my blanket separately, just to keep things going and make sure I don't lose track of anything. I'm also in the middle of adding a book right now to it as we speak. So yeah, let's go ahead and I guess just jump right into it. Yeah, this was pretty interesting. So the book I read was The Switch by Justina Robson. And it was very, very different from a lot of books I've read. I wasn't sure how I felt about it at first, but the more I think about it, the more I really liked it. In the sense that I didn't know what was going on a lot of the time. And that is purely because our main character didn't really understand a lot of it, which can be tricky to do. If your main character, who we stay with the entire time, doesn't understand anything that's going on around him, it can make it really difficult to follow along as a reader, because you don't know what's happening either. But at the same time, you get more of the emotion. You get more of that confusion, like what is going on. So it was really interesting to be in that situation in a book, not knowing what's going on, just getting the bare gist of it, and just kind of going along with things as the character does.
So what you're saying is no one knows what happened.
So the description here is, in harmony, only model citizens are welcome. A perfect society must be maintained. The defective must be eradicated. For orphans like Nico and Twostar, this means a life that's brutal, regulated, and short. But Nico and Twostar are survivors. When they're offered a way out of the slums, they take it. Unfortunately, no one told Nico the deal included being sentenced to death for the murder of one of Harmony's most notorious gang leaders, or that to gain his freedom, he first must lose his mind.
Way ahead of you there.
So that was the description for The Switch. And it was fascinating, really. So Nico and Twostar, which is a really interesting name, are two primary characters, but we stay mostly in Nico's head, in a way, and I'll explain that later. So Nico is quite interesting. He actually reminds me a lot of the main character in my boyfriend's book, Jace, in the sense that all he wants is to fight. So he likes to go into boxing rings, do fights to the death sort of deal. He loves winning. Nico is gay, and in this world that is severely illegal. But they don't necessarily say gay. What they call them is two suns or two moons. Two suns being gay men, two moons being gay women. So men and women are sun and moon, and typically sun and moon get together. But every once in a while we get these two suns. Both Nico and Twostar are gay as well. So they escape an orphanage, which is where our book opens up, is them escaping an orphanage. And they basically fight their way through the slums. They get picked up by some gang members that can use their abilities. Nico, obviously, for his fighting. Twostar for her hacking abilities. She's incredibly gifted with technology. So they get picked up by some gang members, and they work their way up through the ranks pretty quickly and pretty efficiently, to the point where they're almost treated like royalty. Like, they're top members of this gang. Eventually, though, they are stolen by another gang, and the gang leader is also a two-son, and he kind of uses Nico for that purpose. So it's very much sleep with me or I kill your sister. And Twostar he considers Twostar a sister. They both consider each other siblings, because in a way they kind of are. They've always been together. They can't really imagine life without each other. So they are intensely and fiercely loyal to each other, which I thought was incredibly beautiful. It's really well done as well. So when the second gang leader to take Nico is found murdered, Nico is obviously blamed. So he ends up going to jail for the murder, and the whole point is to kill him. Now, what happens is Twostar has gotten in touch with some unknown entity. This person, she she's very cagey throughout most of the book. She considers her, or she introduces herself as a rebel, trying to change Harmony, and Harmony is this very secular kind of utopia thing going on. But they revere alchemy in a way. They consider alchemy divine and gifted by God and things like that. So reality and the belief system kind of become muddy in a way, and nobody really knows what the truth is, which is something that everybody wants to learn. Particularly Nico. He doesn't necessarily care about the truth, but he's also tired of being jerked around. So that leads to his escape attempt. This rebel leader comes to Twostar, says, "Hey, I have something that I can save your brother." It's called the Switch. And these switches are kind of legendary. They're very much, they remind me very much of the Philosopher's Stone in terms of alchemy and things like that. They just give the holder these intense abilities and ways to break all the rules of physics and reality and things like that. Obviously, Nico and Twostar agree to this. What ends up happening is that he has to get the switch implanted into his brain. And Twostar is the one to do that for him. And they don't really quite know what the switch actually is. They're just aware that it's supposed to help him escape being killed. So he's taken to this incinerator. Like, yeah, they're just gonna incinerate him. By the way, it's like a flash incinerator. How it's described. He'll go in. There'll be a burst of light, and then he'll go dust. Like that's the plan. So he gets put in this room, and he's just sitting there like, okay, what am I supposed to do? What's going on? And then the switch kicks in, and it is kind of an intense ride from there. He can now see and hear things beyond the scope of human ability. It's almost to the point where he's like a player playing a video game, but the main character is him. So it becomes very wild, and then he starts hearing voices. It turns out that the rebel leader can control him and talk to him through this switch. So she can make him do things. She can make him think certain ways. She can download information into his head. So things that he never really knew, he can suddenly learn. And from there, his mind is changed drastically. And it's very, very interesting to see how it's all taken care of in terms of the book. Everything is very loose. There's descriptions that are difficult to parse until after you've read the whole description. And then it just kind of leaves you sitting there going like, okay, I think I understand what's happening. But it's clear that it's not really understandable to the character, if that makes sense. And it sounds terrible in terms of reading, but it's actually quite amazing, and it's beautifully written as well. These descriptions that the author gives about how his mind works, the visions that he sees, how he thinks, how he feels about things now, it's all just amazingly beautiful. And of course, he does end up finding somebody to fall in love with, and things get dicey from there. But yeah, so I'm not going to get too far into it because I don't want spoilers or anything. I try and make these videos as spoiler-free as possible. One, for time's sake, for one thing. And two, because I can go into great detail. And if that's something that you want me to do, by the way, let me know. I can probably try and do long-form essays about these books if you really wanted me to. But for just a quick review, we're just gonna keep it nice and short. So yeah, it was a beautiful book. I love the writing. I love the story. I had no idea what was going on half the time, but I didn't care. It was still just a wild ride. It was really fun. It was a sci-fi, obviously. There was some technobabble, which really is something that I don't like about sci-fi. It's why I don't read it too much. But even the technobabble, it was just simple enough to get through. I didn't need to know a whole lot of what was going on, mostly because the character didn't understand it either. So they would try and dumb it down for him, and that would help the reader in some cases. But a lot of the times, Nico was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna go punch this guy, and we'll see what happens from there. So it was fun. It was a wild ride. Very philosophical. And at first, I was a little concerned that it was preachy because the opening of the book, I'll say a little too topical. It was very, very preachy in terms of sexuality and stuff like that. Which isn't to say that we can't talk about that sort of thing. But I felt like I was being lectured to, not necessarily taken on a journey. But that ended very quickly, and we got into some wild territory. Very interested in reading more from Justina Robinson. It was just very fascinating. Very, very well done. I love the characters. All the characters were very distinct. All the characters were also very complex in their own ways. So yeah, I would definitely highly recommend it. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 on my Goodreads, or 5 out of 5, something like that. But it was wonderful. I had a great time with it. The writing is beautiful. The characters are wonderful. The setting is really cool. It reminded me a lot of like Cowboy Bebop in a way. Just with like the really cool sci-fi settings, how things worked and all that. And had a little bit of Full Metal Alchemist vibes to it as well. In the sense that, is alchemy magic, or is it science? Or is it both? Or something like that. So yeah, it was really great. If that sounds like your kind of thing, I highly recommend it. It's on Amazon right now for I think like $19. I'm not sure. And if you do read it, or if you have read it, let me know what you thought about it. Let me know what your favorite scenes were, what your favorite character was. And yeah, just go ahead and talk to me about it, whatever you want to say. So yeah, I think that'll do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining us again here on Plot Twist, and have a wonderful day, and keep reading.